Today we're going to look at building an ANW2C mission plan using the Redland as an interface for the router. I'm going to try and move through pretty slow so you guys can follow along and you guys can make a plan with me if you want. First thing I want you guys to do, if not already opened up over here, I want you to go ahead and open up your toolbox, click on toolbox, and then from there we're going to go ahead and create topology. Now we know with ANW2C we need the 117 Golf. So we're going to go ahead and click 117 Golf. And we're going to go over to the arrow next to New. We're going to create multiple 117 Golfs. Let's keep it simple this time. Let's go 3 117 Golfs. Okay. You see them populate up here. And the next thing I want you to do is drag over the ANW2C cloud. No, we do not want the wizard. And we connect our cloud and our radios. The connect button here after we've highlighted everything. Good. Okay. Let's move the cloud over a little bit. And we said we were going to use the Redland as the interface for the router. So we drag over the Redland from our toolbox. Now I want you guys to connect the Redland and the first radio. This is actually the radio that's going to be physically connected to your router on your Swan, your LMST, Mark 142, whatever the case may be. This is going to be that J3 cable coming off the top of your Golf to the router. So go ahead and highlight these two guys. Connect. Good there. There's a couple different ways you can do this. What I like to do is I like to start off with the cloud configurations. When you move into the cloud configuration, never change the IPs within the cloud. Go directly to general. The things you're looking at in your general configuration under your cloud is your frequency for your network, what is given to you to use as your frequency, anywhere from 225 to 2000. We're going to leave it at default to 230. You have two options under bandwidth, 1.2 or 5. We'll use 1.2 because this is most likely what you're going to get most of the time. The other thing to worry about here is transmit power, leave that to high. Your voice key we can leave at TK01, and everything else will go greatest range, we'll leave as default, everything else. Epoch configuration. If you ever have an aircraft in your network, this is where you want to go into epoch configuration and change this to sky mode. It's going to give it that extra time to connect with that aircraft. But we're not going to use an aircraft in this mission plan, so we'll leave that as normal for range. And the next thing I want you guys to do is drop down to keychain configuration. Hit the little box over to the right here. And you'll notice in keychain configuration all your TEKs have already populated for you. Notice that TK003 matches up to March, 4 to April, 5 to May, 6 to June, 7 to July, and so on. Now this is important to keep in mind when you're loading your HAPI key into your radios, that you're loading that HAPI key into the right slot. And OK, that's fine. Next thing you're going to do is your multicast table. I just want you to go ahead and add that default multicast IP address. That's all you need to do there. Transit key management, you just have to make sure you got a key in here, which will always be there. Okay, that's good. And that's it. That's all you need to do for your cloud. Now next thing, we're going to move on to our Redland. Now this is where we're actually going to start assigning our IPs. We're going to use, to keep things simple, just for this mission plan here, you're going to use a simple private IP address of 192.168.100.0. And change your subnet mask to a 252 to represent a /30 CIDR notation. And then your gateway is going to be 192.168.100.1. And I want you to add additional networks here. Go ahead and add the default, submit, and you see the two quad zeros pop up there. Go ahead and close. Now it's important thing to keep in mind here is that your network will be .0, your router will be 1, and you're going to have a /30 for a subnet mask that's going to be shared with the first radio. So this is all going to be part of the same /30. So let's move on to our first radio here. Let's go ahead and give it a name first. Giving it a name just makes it easier on your radio operators when they get to the field, when they're activating their mission plans, so they know who they are, and it's easier, and it causes less confusion. Next thing we're going to do, move down to our red IP networking, and then directly below here hit red network interface, and now we know .1 is our router. Remember, we had a subnet of 0 and then 1 for the router. So we want to change this IP here, our red Ethernet, we want to change to 2. And then 3 will be our broadcast. And then 4 will start the network on our next radio. But before we move on, only on this first radio I want you guys to do this. Go ahead and go down to Routing Information Protocol here. And I want you guys to enable RIP. Or just on that first radio. And you can leave the rest as default, that's fine. Okay, let's move on to our second radio. Let's go ahead and give our second radio a name. Go forward. Now, looking at our second radio, so we started off here with a network of 0, router is 1, radio is 2, broadcast is 3, and that's 1/30 shared by the radio and the Redland. Now our second radio, if our broadcast was 3, here is where we left off. Our network would be 4, and then our radio would be 5. Now every other radio besides the first one in the network is going to have its own /30. At least its own /30, I should say. That gives at least 2 usable IPs for a radio and a laptop on that radio. Let's move on to our third radio. Let's go ahead and give it a name. And then we move down. And we want to go ahead and change this to 100. .9 and 252 subnet mask. Remember, that's all we're changing there is our IPs and our name. We only enable RIP on that first radio. So this radio here was 2, then we went 5, and then 9, and then if we had another radio it would be 13. Important thing to remember, each radio must have at least its own /30. Okay, we've created our network, we've thrown our radios in there, we have our Redland as our interface for our router, we have our cloud, we've configured all of our IPs. The next thing to do is go ahead and validate our plan, see if we have any errors. Our plan is passed, so we're good, we're ready to program our radio. Back to topology here. Leave everything highlighted. At this point we would connect our radio to the laptop and we would program radio. You would create multi-station file. Give your mission plan a unique name, something that will show up in the radio. Now if we had a radio connected, it would show up here. The serial number would show up here in location, and then from here you generate mission plan, and then you turn to the radio and install your plan and activate your plan.